Welcome back, guys, and today we are going to check out SCP-407, the Song of Genesis. Been getting into these SCP videos. They're pretty cool, and they're pretty varied, so you never know really what you're going to get. So let's go ahead and check this out.
It all started with a panicked phone call. A local landlady who owned a downtown tenement building had called the police in hysterics. Something horrifying had happened to one of her tenants. She couldn't possibly explain. The one detail she was able to articulate was that his room looked like a rainforest. A police response team was on the case in no time. They drove down to the tenement building, met the crying landlady at the door, and found their way to the room that caused all this confusion. When they'd opened the door, they saw with horror that she was right. Trees, plants, fungi, and even insects and animals were all over the room. It was teeming with life. The flora and fauna in this room didn't look like anything else on Earth, and given the anomalous nature of what had happened here, it's extremely possible they were right. The tenant, a university professor who'd recently gone on an anthropological expedition to the Amazon rainforest, was nowhere to be seen, but one of the officers spotted a grim clue for what may have happened to him. A large colony of anomalous mold was quickly growing on the far wall. The officer swore it was a trick of the mind at first, but he was wrong. A human skull was sinking into the tissue of the mold, and to make matters worse, whipping tendrils began to slither from the empty eye sockets, reaching for the new meat.
Ooh.
Thankfully for everyone who is still alive at this point, the SCP Foundation swooped in and took over the situation with the help of a mobile task force and some containment specialists. The landlady, the cops, and the other residents of the building were given amnestics and relocated. The building was purchased by the Foundation and condemned.
I love how these guys just have the resources and the logistics to just buy the whole building, give everybody drugs that wipes their memories, and relocate people in their jobs. Just crazy.
While they searched the anomalous room for the source of this unchecked biological growth, and they found their answer in a most unlikely form: an unmarked cassette tape still inside the player when they arrived. The recording on this cassette tape came to be known as SCP-407. It may be unassuming when compared to immortal, misanthropic lizard monsters and multi-dimensional chaos gods, but the tape in that room, if it ever fell into the wrong hands, could cause a mass ecological catastrophe that would inevitably bloom into a dreaded XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. So first things first.
What does XK class mean? Like, it kind of implies that it's an end of the world scenario, but like, what does XK, the actual XK, mean?
What is actually on this tape? Thanks to brief samples heard in tests with D-Class personnel, the Foundation was able to discover that it was an approximately 28-minute-long recording of a song. It's performed in an unknown language, and appears to be sung a cappella style by a group of unknown individuals. Fearing potential degradation of the cassette tape, the Foundation backed it up as an audio file in the Site-19 computer database. Those who've been able to listen to the song during testing have had an overwhelmingly positive emotional response.
Okay, so it's an actual song. Okay, I get it. The Song of Genesis. Genesis generally meaning beginning. So the Song of Beginning. Apparently, it creates these plants, but it's an actual song. Okay, all right. I'm sure they're gonna explain it.
Describing it as soothing, glorious, and beautiful. And for the first minute of its runtime, the song's anomalous effect really live up to this reputation. When the song is played, it massively accelerates cell growth within its auditory range. Its potency is increased by the volume and the length it's allowed to play.
Okay, so listening to it louder increases the effectiveness of it.
It's important to note that plugging or covering your ears won't make any difference. The area of effect seems to be defined by how far the sound vibrations travel, and whether you're actually able to hear it is irrelevant. But if you're only listening for a minute or less, you'll be glad to feel the anomalous effect of being within SCP-407's auditory range. During this specific period of time, it's been shown to be a kind of miracle cure to almost all physical maladies, with the exception of cancer, thanks to the cell growing.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. Apparently, listening to it for 1 minute can cure any ailment or disease you may be suffering from, with the exception of cancer. That's pretty powerful for 60 seconds of listening to a song. That's crazy. Like, so obviously there's going to be some monkey's paw, some catch with it. It's not going to be all healing
and rejuvenating properties of the song. The Foundation discovered that 407 was an effective treatment for Alzheimer's disease, Crohn's disease, brain and spinal cord.
That's huge. That's huge. It may not be able to cure cancer, but it can cure Alzheimer's. That's awesome. Because, don't get me wrong, cancer sucks in all its forms, but a person going through cancer still gets to be themselves. They still get to have the memories of their past, of their friends and family and the relationships and the things that they did in life. Alzheimer's is terrifying to me personally because it takes all that away. All the things that make you, you, it takes that away. And in that regard, at least in my opinion, Alzheimer's is more terrifying than something like cancer. But let's continue.
Injuries and normally fatal infections or wounds, amongst other maladies. It was like a version of SCP-500, the pills that can cure everything, but one that would never run out. So, if it's such an effective healer, why wasn't it more widely employed by the Foundation? Because of what happens if you keep listening. If the song was played for 2 to 3 minutes, the subject would begin to experience unnecessary and unchecked cell growth, particularly on the skin. The result would mostly be benign tumors and calcium and fat deposits, which, though sometimes painful and disfiguring, are not life-threatening. At minute 4, single-celled organisms in the auditory vicinity of the song begin to experience accelerated mitosis, also known as cell division. This results in bacterial and fungal growth that become extremely dangerous for anyone and anything exposed. And beyond minute 5, things become truly monstrous. The Foundation only ever conducted 2 tests wherein the song was fully played. These tests present.
So the song was 28 minutes long, and at 4 minutes you start to get like tumors. Man, 28 minutes.
Such a huge danger that further testing of 407 was forbidden without explicit permission from a member of O5 Command. The first test involved a female member of D-Class personnel in a soundproofed but unsterilized testing chamber. As expected, she was initially delighted by the music. It cured her injured knee and brought her back to a state of peak physical fitness, but this didn't last for long. She soon began to report intense dizziness and stomach pain, resulting in severe sickness. At this point, anomalous plant growth began in the corners of the testing chamber. It seemed as though a whole ecosystem was coming to life and evolving at an impossibly fast rate in the chamber. Over the next few minutes, the D-Class experienced a nightmarish physical transformation. Her skin became a thick, calloused mass. She soon devolved further into a thick, immobile blob of pure flesh, unrecognizable as anything human, while the chamber around her was becoming a lush rainforest of alien plants. These plants grew around and eventually on her, until there was nothing left. Shortly after, all the plants died and decomposed, giving way to a huge mound of anomalous mold devouring the resulting mold.
Oh man, that's pretty brutal. It causes rapid cellular regeneration and reproduction, and basically turns you into just an amorphous blob of biomass that just consumes until it withers and dies. That's, oh man, a song does that. That's crazy. That's metal. That's it's totally metal.
The mold itself began to evolve, growing large mouth and hand-like structures that it used to feed itself on the surrounding
For real, that's like some metalocalypse, like metal type stuff.
flora and fauna as it began to grow back. When the song ended, the Foundation brought the test to a close, sterilized the room, and collected some samples for later. There was nothing left of the original D-Class subject. The second test wasn't any nicer. While at first the subject, this time a male member of D-Class personnel, appeared to become more youthful and even gain an inch of height, as the minutes passed, he began to experience
Okay, so early on in the healing stages, it can almost pull back aging, kind of undo some of the damage from the aging process. That's kind of cool.
extreme discomfort. He soon began to vomit, with the vomit quickly blooming into plants. Plant shoots also began to quickly spring out of his eyes and mouth, until his entire body was destroyed by what appeared to be a banana tree suddenly growing out of it. Once again, the testing chamber became a whole
Oh man. Oh man. Bro. That is so brutal. That is some Cronenberg level Dude, yeah, like I can see a Cronenberg like type movie being made about this. And as you listen to the song, it just comes out of your eyes and your skin, and just imagine a tree sprouting from the torso of a human being. It would just split a person in two and just keep growing. Oh man, that is brutal. Here I'm seeing something called the Song of Genesis, and I'm thinking that it's going to be not terrifying, and it's so brutal. It's crazy.
ecosystem. This one filled with unique, never-before-seen mammals. However, it all came to an end when the room was taken over by a fast-growing parasitic fungus that consumed everything else with its spores and fungal stalks. And it looked like it was breathing. There was something concerning about both of these tests, beyond the obvious physical horror of watching death by unchecked cell growth. What was this?
Death by unchecked cell growth. Oh man, if that doesn't sound like a ridiculously painful way to go, I don't know what is.
This mysterious fungus that kept appearing and seemed to take over everything it touched in the end. The Foundation tested the samples it collected rigorously, and it came to a surprising conclusion. They'd actually encountered this same fungus before, but not in this dimension. SCP-407 is a man with dimension hopping abilities. The one problem is, he can't control where and when he hops. As a result, he's been stuck in a number of scary alternate dimensions, but one seemed eerily
Talk about a crappy power, man. Uncontrollable dimension hopping. Yeah, I'll pass on that one.
similar to what the Foundation was encountering with SCP-407. In one dimension he briefly hopped into, 507 encountered an abandoned version of Site-19, strewn with corpses covered in that same breathing mold. He was horrified, but decided to inspect further, hoping to find his way out of the facility and discover some answers about what happened here. However, when he found his way out, what he discovered didn't comfort him. The entire world seemed to be covered by this same mold. There was nothing left. It consumed everything. Thanks to Foundation tests, both molds were found to be similar to the cordyceps fungi, a kind of dangerous.
Okay, alright. The cordyceps fungus. This, if I recall correctly, this is a fungus that likes to affect insects, particularly ants, and it infects an ant, and I guess infects their brain, and kind of keeps them a lot. They're alive, but they're kind of like a zombie ant. And their whole deal is they need to go to the nest or the ant mound or whatever, and infect other ants. And typically, once the other ants find out that there's an infected ant, they actually kill and or banish the infected ant. And if they have to remove it by force and kill it, then the ants that killed the infected ant will also be banished. Which is kind of crazy that, you think of ants as being stupid, and yet even ants can follow quarantine procedures to save themselves from a biological mishap. Pretty interesting. Pretty sure this is the same cordyceps fungus they're talking about. And I think this is also the fungus that The Last of Us based their zombie outbreak on as well. So, kind of neat.
Parasitic mold, except this one appeared to be a far more evolved and even more deadly version of the fungus. What could this mean? What was the origin of this anomalous song? Would it and the fungus it seems to inspire someday destroy the world as we know it and kill us all? We'll never actually know the answer to any of this, and it's thanks to an extremely unlikely ally, a person of interest nicknamed LS, a prominent member of the Serpent's Hand. This enigmatic figure had previously come into possession of SCP-207.
Man, okay, every time I watch one of these SCP videos, I wind up with more questions than I have answers. It seems like every time I watch it, they always introduce other SCPs, other people, other foundations, other universes. Alright, let's do it. We'll track it all in our brain, I guess. Let's go.
268, a hat that made them almost impossible to detect. With the help of this hat, LS breached Site-19 in an incident that was later dubbed Security Breach Incident X-23. While it's believed that LS mainly broke into the facility to make the use of SCP-914, they performed a curious action along the way. They hacked
like that. What was that? So many questions.
Into the Foundation database and deleted all traces of SCP-407, effectively neutralizing it. In a note left by LS, they said, "You'll thank me for deleting what you call 407. Why would a member of the Serpent's Hand, a group of interest that is often militant in their anti-neutralization stance, neutralize an SCP themselves? The answer to this lays in who exactly LS is. This mysterious figure is..."
Well, to be fair, this seems pretty powerful, this SCP-407. If it's not something that, like, you have to hear and understand the words of the song, because it's spoken in an unknown language. You can even apparently be deaf, but as long as the actual sound waves are hitting your body, it stimulates that cell growth. The louder you play it, the more effective it is. So imagine if someone were to get a hold of this song and go to, I don't know, a sporting arena and play this over those massively loud speakers that are in sporting arenas. It only takes, what, 5 minutes of listening to this song to suffer negative, invisible effects from this? By the 10-minute mark, most people are going to be bursting from the insides with plants. Like, you could take out a whole stadium of people using this in, like, 10 minutes. That's super dangerous. So I can definitely see why someone would be like, all right, let's get rid of this. I mean, yeah, the first 60 seconds are cool where it heals everybody, but then after that, wild. These SCPs are crazy, man.
Isn't technically one person. They're a group of the same person, namely a woman named Allison Chow, from a number of different dimensions. They meet in the Wanderer's Library. the headquarters of the Serpent's Hand that exists between dimensions to coordinate their missions.
And here I was just saying that there's so many things. And now the one person that they introduced, it's not just a single person, it's multiple persons of the same version, multiple versions of the same person across multiple dimensions. See, so I'm talking about. It gets crazy. But it's also why I love this kind of stuff. Just really wild, out there kind of thinking stuff. I love it.
Why does this matter in regards to SCP-407? Because the nature of LS allows them to know what's going on in a huge number of dimensions at once. This means, much like the brief glimpse given by SCP-507, LS likely knows about another universe where 407 and its horrific mold have already caused an XK-class scenario and destroyed the world. And if it happened there due to poor biological containment measures, or 407 falling into the wrong hands, it could happen here too. Unless, of course, someone stepped in and dealt with the problem personally. And while the Foundation's policy is typically to contain rather than neutralize the anomalies they find, we have to admit, we're probably with the Serpent's Hand on this one. Some songs, as it turns out, are just better left unplayed. Now go watch SCP-0...
Yeah, that was a crazy one. Could you not just take the first 60 seconds of the recording, erase everything else, and then just have the first 60 seconds? Clearly, it's a physiological reaction to sound vibrations hitting the body. The whole song is 28 minutes long, and it seems like there's probably some kind of process that takes place during that 28 minutes to, cause things to happen the way they are. So would only having and only listening to the first 60 seconds, would that be safe? Could you package and market and distribute the first 60 seconds as a cure? Or is it cumulative where you can just even if you have only the first 60 seconds, if you listen to it repeatedly, it does damage to you? I don't know. More questions than answers, but still cool yet incredibly brutal, man. Like sprouting plants from the inside out until it just obliterates your body. Like, what? Anyways, love the SCP stuff. If you guys have any suggestions, please leave them down below in the comments. If you like the video, like, subscribe, and thanks for stopping by. Take care of yourselves and have a good day.